What wide receiver the Minnesota Vikings going to trade for? There's a lot of steam surrounding Adam Thielen, but what if that doesn't happen? Vikings are going to need a backup plan. So I dug around and I found a few different options that feel realistic. One of them might be a little unrealistic, but it's plausible. We're also going to talk about the initial cuts and who we can expect here moving forward because there's still quite a few more to go. Welcome to the Real Forno Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Real Forno Show, hosted by the one and only Tyler Forness. A to Z Sports sought him out to be their Minnesota Vikings reporter and NFL analyst. And he's a proud contributor over at SKOL North's Purple Daily. Tyler is also the captivating host of The Good, The Bad, and The Hungry on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network, and a founding member of Vikings First and SKOL.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of The Real Forno Show, sponsored by our friends at Underdog Fantasy. My name is Tyler Forness. With me, as always, in the top left corner is producer Dave. And we have a busy week here. If you joined us over the weekend, you saw a show on Saturday, a show on Sunday, another show on Sunday, and even a show, I believe we also did one on, Wednesday? Yeah, we've just been busy because the Vikings have been giving us a lot to talk about. And as the course of the season goes along, the more breaking news we get, the more opportunities you'll have to see or listen to us. And if you can't get enough of us, well, I've got just the thing for you. The Discord channel. Go into the show notes and click the link. Come join us. And if you're a member of the YouTube channel, just ask Chuck in the chat. Anytime I get a little bit of steam going on, I drop it in a members only channel that you can only get if you link your YouTube account to your Discord profile. And Dave knows he has access to it, but well, he's a co-founder of Vikings First and SKOL, so of course he does. So there's a lot of extra fun opportunities for you. And there's also an Ask Me Anything channel for YouTube subscribers. You can ask me literally anything you want. I don't care. And more than likely I'll answer it. There's probably a line, but I don't know what that line is right now. So go ahead and give it a shot. We'll have a little bit of fun in there. We got over 50 people in there so far, and we'd like to keep growing with some good people who want to have good football discussion. And that's what it's for.
Or Gary with his pizza recipes.
Yeah, Gary, there's a food channel that if once you join the Discord, I will rename it Gary's Food Corner or something like that, because I love hearing your recipes and we can swap some stuff. I made a smoked salsa over the weekend that is just tremendous. Doesn't have a sustained heat, but it's a very I like chipotle peppers a lot. I don't like habaneros, stuff that's like super potent and spicy, but I like that's dry, sustained heat. So it's got that. It's got a really nice flavor, but it feels like as you're eating it and chewing, like your chip with the sauce on it, you get different things throughout the course of that process. And my neighbors loved it. And they've had, this is my fourth batch now. They've loved all of them. So that's a good sign. And we're really excited to kind of continue that process as well. But we're going to have a lot of fun in the Discord. We're going to have a lot of fun here tonight. Dave, the Vikings have already started, and I got to pull up, if you guys want to follow along, I have a tracker at atozsports.com of all of every single Vikings cut. I need to find it. Here we go. I will share it with Dave so he can put it in the chat, because I don't like running the YouTube stream so I can actually talk in the comments, because it can mess things up on our end. We found that when I'm uploading something for work, because a lot of times because of the pups, I'll come in here and do my work videos and upload them while we're doing the show. That makes me blurry. So I just kind of stay away from doing anything else other than basic operational website stuff. But the Vikings have made some moves, and I think we should talk about that before we get really in depth into the conversation about what could happen at wide receiver, because I think that's an important one. I was really hesitant at first to be like, I don't think they need a wide receiver. The reason why I've kind of changed path on that is because we don't know what's going on with Jalen Nailor. And Jalen Nailor, to me, is the catalyst behind wanting a wide receiver move. Not saying that Jalen Nailor is this all-important player, but if he's your wide receiver 2 for 3 weeks, that's fine. You can make it work with everything else you have on the roster. And when Jordan Addison comes back, you're golden. No big deal. So the fact that you don't know what's going on with him, to me, is this big red flag. And it's a frustrating one because you want to be able to have some consistency and continuity. And not having that is going to be extra frustrating. So who could they target? Well, obviously the rumor is Adam Thielen, and who, whenever they end up making that trade, will go live. But remember, Tuesday afternoon, probably around 3:30, maybe as late as 4, somewhere in that time frame, we'll be going live and we'll be breaking down the initial Vikings 53-man roster. We told you that last week, but just a reminder, if you want to join us live, I know there's already 100 of you in here, which hell yeah, that rules. Thank you guys so much for joining us here on this Monday. Let's have a conversation about some of the players that have already been let go. Brett Rippon was let go. We kind of saw that coming when they signed Wentz and they traded Howell. And when those things happened, it was shown that, or it was kind of revealed that Brosmer made the team, but it also wasn't like directly said. Like Tom Pelissero kind of inferred it. Ben Gessling did the same, but neither one of them outright said Max Brosmer made the roster, which sometimes happens and sometimes it doesn't. Like the Browns over the course of the weekend, they have a defensive tackle. His name's Aiden Huntington. He weighs like 280 pounds and he's got ankle bend, Dave. It's crazy. Like, you remember how Everson Griffin was on like the punt team for a while and he was a gunner? Like, this dude was on the kickoff team and like making plays at 280 pounds, not just being a body. So some really impressive stuff. They straight up said during the presser, he made the team, like the post-game presser from the preseason game. So my brain was like, okay, why aren't they just saying it? Like, this is kind of a big deal and something that Vikings fans really want to know. Why won't they just come out and say that? But they don't have to, and it's not normal. So it's not the end of the world. But I found it interesting that multiple sources kind of inferred it. That also could mean that things could change. Maybe a quarterback release could have them rethinking things, kind of like what happened with Jaren Hall last year, where Hall made the initial 53. 2 days later, they cut him for Brett Rippon. Wanted to bring him back on the practice squad. He chose Seattle, and now Jaren Hall, from what I understand, is not with a team right now, which I'm going to be honest, it kind of sucks. That's my boy. I love Jaren Hall. But very interesting from that perspective. And Rippon could end up back on the practice squad for the sole fact that he's got the brain. This is just Kevin O'Connell. Like, Kevin O'Connell had the athleticism, really plus athleticism. Rippon doesn't have that, but we'll get to what I mean in a second. And he had everything up here to make the NFL as a quarterback. What didn't he have? The arm to cash the checks. And that's what Rippon doesn't have. He doesn't have the arm to cash the checks. And we talked about over the weekend, Dave. This is like the last player on an NBA bench going to the Y and just whipping ass because that guy's still really good at basketball. This guy could be a Hall of Fame like flag football quarterback because he's still a really good quarterback, probably one of the best 100-ish in the world, maybe 150 when you include like college guys and all that kind of stuff. But he's just not that dude as far as being an NFL player. And it stinks. You'd like to see more from him. He's the nephew of former Super Bowl MVP Brett Rippon of the Washington Commanders, who won the MVP in the Super Bowl, played at the Metrodome against the Buffalo Bills. We'll kind of blitz through these. They released Rippon because he's a vested vet. They also released Cam Gill, who's a vested vet. So if you have 4+ years in the NFL, you don't go on waivers at this time. You just get released and then you can pick your team. You don't have to worry about that process. After the trade deadline, everybody goes on waivers. It does not matter if you're a vested veteran. So that's one of those little quirks that needs to be taken into consideration. They also waived 9 players yesterday. Cornerback Reddy Stewart, who I thought maybe had like a puncher's chance to make the roster if you wanted to keep like one DB as like a special teamer, because he had a pretty solid camp, but I thought it was a real long shot. We'll look for him on the practice squad though. Quarterback Keenan Garber, running back Trey Stewart, my guy going into the process. Yeah, he didn't have a good camp. The safety Michelle Powell, offensive tackle Logan Brown, who was the number 1 player on the consensus board for the Vikings on this UDFA roster, which is 143rd or 144th. So he was ranked as like a 5th round pick by the consensus board. And he doesn't make the team, but he also wasn't that good during camp, which tells the whole story. Offensive lineman Zach Bailey, wide receivers Silas Bolden and Robert Lewis, and defensive lineman Travis Bell. I will never understand why there were multiple beat writers that just pushed Silas Bolden could make this team. He's really good. I never saw it. And maybe it was just during those close practices where, I'm working on trying to earn a credential. I don't have one yet, but they are there with those credentials and they're able to see some things. But nothing that I saw in the practices or games that were available to me said that Bolden was an NFL player. So I'm very intrigued to see what the difference was between what they were able to see and what I saw, because it never made a lot of sense to me. But that's the nature of the game sometimes. And they also made 2 more moves today on Monday. This was interesting, Dave. Tom Pelissero at 10:08 a.m. The Vikings plan to waive Leroy Watson. If Minnesota can't trade him by Tuesday's cutdown deadline, he'll hit waivers. Who's going to trade for Leroy Watson? I'm sure he's a nice human. He was bad. Bad. What are we doing? What Pelissero and these guys do is like, hey, they'll get from a source, like say, hey, we're going to cut this guy, but somebody wants to trade for him. And I think that's what the Eagles end up doing with Sam Howell, not Powell, because they knew that they needed a backup quarterback, especially with Tanner McKee not being able to play for the first few weeks because I think he's got a fractured thumb. Like, they're last on the waiver wire. It'll be hard to get one of those guys. So I'm wondering if like maybe they're trying to drum up interest. Like, if you really want this guy, hey, maybe there are multiple teams who want him, and they'll do that kind of water carrying, so to speak, for teams where, hey, we'll put this out there. We know if we get a trade, it's just going to be a 6th or a 7th, but if we can get a 6th or a 7th, let's go. That sounds great. But I just don't see any real upside of trading for Watson or having Watson around. I know he's a former tight end, but he's been in the NFL a while and he's been bad. I think at a certain point, that's just what you are as a player. And I don't know. I when I read it, I just found it funny.
I got you. Now, I did see a question pop up here, and I got to go find it.
Okay.
It was, and I thought it was a good question. Do you think I started? No, I didn't. Besides getting the argument over Jalen Naylor, let's see. I went too far. Oh, well. It should come back to me slowly. And nothing. Not seeing it.
Okay. Well, if you see it, let me know. I'd be more than happy to answer it. One more move was made, and the Vikings officially settled their punter battle. Oscar Chapman was waived. You have to think that the missed hold on Friday night was a big deciding factor. And it's frustrating, but the Vikings can keep Chapman. They can keep working with him, and he's free. Now, free in this sense, Chapman's still going to get paid. He's going to get the $236,000, but it's not going to be accounted for in the salary cap because he's, a part of the International Pathway Program. So that's a big thing. And I'm really intrigued to see how this will end up looking. I'm intrigued to see if they really want to try and develop Chapman from a long-term perspective, because I think that there is something there, especially if he challenged him. Like, he was like the 90th man on the roster, and he pushed Ryan Wright to the limit for this job. So maybe there is something there worth developing, and it's a free roster spot. So you might as well give it a try. And if Ryan Wright goes down, boom, just elevate Chapman for a few games. No big deal. And I think that's going to be really interesting to kind of watch unfold. And I'm excited about it. I think having a good punter is one of those things where if you don't have a good one, it's not the end of the world. You just don't want to have a bad punter. Having a bad punter, Dave, is awful. You don't want one, because a bad punter can be an absolute detriment for you. But I think if you can improve on that position over the course of time with some development, and Matt Daniels has shown himself to be a good special teams coordinator. We're not going to call him elite by any stretch. He's not John Fossil, but he's been good. Will Reichard's been solid. Ryan Wright has had flashes of solid. And Andrew DePaul is arguably the best long snapper in football. How do I know that? 2 first-team All-Pros and a second-team All-Pro and 3 Pro Bowl appearances in the last 3 years. That sounds pretty good. I like the sound of that. So, and Bulldog LLC mentions that, hey, Carson Wentz can hold. Well, we talked about this the other day. You don't want wide receivers you don't want quarterbacks holding, because if they have to play quarterback. What?
I do.
You want your quarterback holding? Why?
Because it gives a greater chance of a threat of a sneak.
A sneak?
Well, not a sneak. What am I talking about? You mean
a fake?
A fake, yep.
Well, the nice part about the Vikings is they have that with Ryan Wright.
I know the history with Tony Romo and how it derailed a season for him. But it used to be normal that quarterbacks held. Mm-hmm. Especially second-string quarterbacks.
I'm trying to remember. There was a couple teams in like the early 2000s. There was a wide receiver that held. I don't remember who it was. If anybody in the chat remembers that. For some reason, my brain is saying Seahawks, but I don't think that's right. There's a wide receiver that held for kicks. Just don't remember who. It wasn't like a wide receiver 1 or 2, but it was a wide receiver.
Edwin asked, do the Vikings need to look for 2 receivers? One that can receive punts, and the second one for the first 3 weeks.
If you don't believe Miles Price can be your returner, which I think he's good enough to be, but if you find somebody like the Browns just released Dwayne Carter, he's been a returner in the league for 10 years. That might be a better option for you from a just returner standpoint. When it comes to other things, like just actually playing receiver, that's a tough one. I'd say if Naylor's healthy, I feel comfortable with this room. Just get through 3 weeks, I'm fine. If Naylor's not healthy and he has to spend any time on injured reserve, that's a problem for me. And
it's reported his hand's in a cast.
But what is it? Is it broken? Is it a laceration? Is it a sprain? We have no idea what this is. And it happened, a week and a half ago? And we have 2 weeks until week 1. So 3.5 weeks from the injury to now, or to the first game. Like, if it's a jammed hand or a laceration, theoretically there should be enough times, because when we think of lacerations, we think, oh, I cut my finger while I was chopping up veggies for dinner. And I put a Band-Aid on, put a glove over it, and we're good. But if you lacerate your hand as a wide receiver, your hands are your whole job. Like, if you keep catching the football, you can just keep busting it open and busting it open. One of the things with dogs, like when they get spayed or neutered, you have to keep them on like crate rest for a while until that incision can heal. So I feel like they have to do the same thing with Naylor. If it is a laceration, you have to let that sucker heal. Otherwise, it's just going to keep popping open and popping open. I can't remember his name, but there was a fullback in the early 2000s, John Ritchie, where he had like wrestler's forehead, where you see like old school wrestlers like Dusty Rhodes, where they got all these lines on their forehead because they would blade. And you take a little razor blade and they used to cut it. Now what they do is they just like stab themselves with the corner of it. So it just pokes. And by doing that, it's easier on the skin and it's a lot easier to heal instead of like a slice. So the reason I bring that up is Richie, every time he would wear a helmet and get hit, he would start bleeding. Like it was just the craziest thing. It was like he was a professional wrestler. But that's part of the deal is you want to give those wounds time to heal. And if it's a laceration, well, Naylor's going to be out until that sucker heals. It just kind of is what it is.
That's only what so much super glue's for.
Fun fact, and I'm sure you know this, Dave. Super glue was invented specifically for wound care. It wasn't invented to fix stuff or this, that, or the other thing. It was invented specifically for wounds. That's why wrestlers like Sabu made it, was like famously like just putting super glue on, and that's why he had all these wicked scars. But for his character, it really worked. But this isn't a wrestling podcast. This is a pro football one. And if Naylor's hurt, I want to just figure it out. We got to figure out the wide receiver spot. If he's going to be fine, then don't force a move. One of the interesting things that I found out earlier today, Dave, I don't know, I haven't talked to you about this, but the Sam Howell trade, the 5th round pick is conditional.
I saw that.
I don't know what the condition is. There's a few different ways it can go. It can be, well, the Eagles also have 3 total 3rd round picks, 5th round picks, excuse me. And then they have their comp pick that they're expecting from Mekhi Becton. So what that could end up meaning is it could be, hey, you're going to get the worst of those regular picks that we have, whatever that ends up being. It could be you get the best. It could be you get the middle. It could be something like that. It's likely a playtime incentive where if Howell plays X amount of snaps, maybe it elevates to a 4. Or it could be something where if he's off the roster by week 1, it drops to a 6, which would be fine. The Vikings give up a 6. They get a 6th and a 7th. Howell can be cut like that. Why? He has no guaranteed money left on his contract. But the second week 1 hits, like everybody else, that contract I believe it becomes fully guaranteed. Maybe that's just a vested veteran. I think it's just a vested veteran.
Well, he would become vested, I believe, because he enters his 4th season.
I think you have to complete your season in order to become vested. So I think those rules don't apply until after your rookie contract.
Okay.
If somebody knows the direct answer to that, more than happy to be corrected if that's the case. But I think that's what it is. So I'm intrigued. We're going to talk about wide receivers. I did some research earlier today, kind of looking at, hey, who could be on the trade block? Who could the Vikings target? And I tried to keep it realistic. I had heard that they had gone big game hunting and tried to target some big name receivers. You're not going to find a Jamar Chase on this list. You'll find one bigger name receiver because he's in kind of a dumpster fire situation and a situation where that team might want to tank. So that's a possibility. But for the most part, it's guys who are like on the fringes of being cut and could be on the market. So we're going to get to that here in just a second. But first, I think, Dave, we need to talk about our friends at Underdog Fantasy.
I just Googled the answer.
What is it?
It's when a player is credited for a season, either on the active, inactive, IR, or PUP roster for 3 or more regular or postseason NFL games.
Oh, okay.
So 3 seasons.
Okay. You know who else has more than 3 seasons under their belt, Dave? Underdog Fantasy. And it's going to be really fun to kind of have the conversation. And we're going to have to I'm going to have to get you a new graphic, Dave, because we actually have a new offer for new customers going into the NFL season. Play just $5 and get $50 in bonus funds when you sign up with my promo code Forno, Forno. And it's going to be a lot of fun. And college football starts this weekend. And on Thursday, I'm going to have a nice little college football play for the weekend. Probably throw in something from Florida because everybody knows how much I love my Gators. I might throw something in from Western Kentucky too. That Maverick McIver, the transfer from Abilene Christian, had a wicked game this past weekend against Sam Houston State, showing Phil Longo that, hey, you don't run that wicked bad offense. You got to run a good one. And we're going to just have a lot of fun with that over the course of the year. I'm really excited to continue doing it. And all you got to do is use that promo code Forno, Forno, when you sign up. And you get $50 in bonus funds just by making a $5 play. That sounds pretty easy. Sounds very, very simple. And all you got to do is be in one of those states on the screen. And if you end up feeling concerned about your play, just call 1-800-GAMBLER. They will help you out. But that's what it is. It's just a fun time. But you know what else is fun, Dave? Potentially trading for a wide receiver. This wide receiver group is interesting. And we had talked at one point about Amari Cooper maybe being like, you could sign him. But it's also interesting in the fact that with Amari Cooper, does he want to play? What does he want? Well, he ended up signing with the Raiders earlier on Monday. And it was a tough one because Cooper would have made a lot of sense, but he's in his early 30s now. Is he washed? I don't know. But he's going to be a Raider. And, sick that there's a restaurant in downtown Columbus that's called Forno at the bottom. And the bottom of a restaurant's a speakeasy. Well, I think we know I'd be upstairs eating a bunch of Italian food, and Dave would be downstairs at the speakeasy. Anthony, FSU over Alabama will not happen. I hope you understand that. Thomas Castellanos is going to get buried under the sun. So, sorry. Alabama's going to easily cover 13.5 points. You heard it here first. That actually might be my lock of the week. I have no faith in Florida State. And that's not even me being a Florida fan. I don't have faith in Florida State. Let's talk about some wide receivers. Speaking of the Raiders, Jakobi Meyers just asked for a trade. Now, this is an interesting one. The Raiders seem to have no interest in moving him, which, of course, what are they going to do? Say, hey, we're open for business. Here, just give us the 7th. We'll get rid of him. No, they want to try and maximize their trade compensation. John Spytek is a smart general manager. He knows what he's doing. So he does have a $10.5 million salary for this year, $255,000 in per game roster bonuses. So his cap hit coming to the Vikings on a trade would be $10.755 million. Acquiring that for 1 year for a player of Jakobi Meyers' talent, like if he was here, you don't cut him. But I don't think this is the type of guy that you would bring in, because paying him that much money that'd be a lot for what.
Well, he wants traded because he wants an extension.
That's the other problem. The Vikings aren't going to give him that extension. So
they could. Yeah. They'd have to push money out, obviously.
Would you give him an extension? Because I probably wouldn't. Like, he's a good player.
He's a very, very good wide receiver.
What's he going to command on extension? Like close to $20 million? I wouldn't want to do that. Yeah, that's too much for me. I'm ready to give Addison, I think his extension is probably going to be in the range of 25 to 30. I think it's going to be less than 30. But in that range, one of the reasons I say in that range is because your Devontae Smiths. And I think Devontae Smith is a phenomenal comp when it comes to discussing a contract extension for Jordan Addison. Smith is the unquestioned number 2 in Philadelphia. And Addison is also the unquestioned number 2. But they're both skilled enough where if they were on a different team, they could be the 1. So Devontae Smith got 3 years, $72 million, $24 million a year. When you adjust for inflation, it'll be about 3 years removed from Smith getting that contract extension. I'd say probably 26, 27 million makes a lot of sense for what Addison would get. Now, when you give him that, would you also want to give your wide receiver 3 close to wide receiver 2 money when his talent level is wide receiver 3? That's where I hesitate. Now, the one player I would consider giving an extension that you would trade for that I feel is realistic, because Terry McLaurin signed a new deal early this morning, and he got an average of $32 million a year. We're still waiting on the full details, but I do know that he got a $30 million signing bonus, which, heck yeah, good for him. The one guy I could see potentially coming is Chris Olave from the New Orleans Saints. He's the only real big fish that I think could potentially happen preseason. And the reason why I say Olave isn't because I loved him in the pre-draft process. I thought he moved as close. He was the only person that I saw move like Justin Jefferson in college. But I never thought he'd be Justin Jefferson in the pros, if that makes sense. They share an incredibly similar profile. They're both route running savants. They're great at the catch point. Now, Olave is worse than Justin Jefferson at yards after catch, and that's not Jefferson's forte. But the idea of Olave with Jefferson would be incredible. So his salary is only $1.49 million this year, his base salary. But then next year, he's due $15.493 million. And all of that is fully guaranteed. Now, Olave would probably cost a second or third, maybe even upward of a first, but probably not. The Saints are, 1, bad with trades, and 2, they are looking to tank.
The ethical tank, yes.
Mm-hmm. And that's kind of why I mentioned, I know there's conversations that'll happen like, oh, it's concussion issues. Well, I don't think J.J. McCarthy's going to serve up hospital balls at every other play. That was the big problem with Olave. He gets served up a hospital ball and he just gets speared. Just throw him a normal football, and I think he's going to be just fine staying healthy. To me, that's the big deal. And I think McCarthy and this offense will help alleviate a lot of that. Olave is a really, really good football player. Now, is it smart to bring him in when you have to extend Addison? Here would be my philosophy. You bring in Olave, you sign him to like a 1 or 2 year extension from what he's already got. You give him a good amount of money. Then after next year, you sign Addison to an extension. And then by the time Olave's is up, then Addison's big money will hit. So if you really wanted to make the math work, you could have both of these guys with Justin Jefferson for the formative years of J.J. McCarthy while he's on that rookie deal. Then you move on from Olave or Addison at that point, depending how things are. Probably Olave, because Addison's kind of your boy. But you could do that if you really wanted to. Olave, you could adjust his contract and be like, hey, we want to just move the money around and we want to do X, Y, and Z. So you could do that too, just to keep him for 2 years. But keeping him for 2 years would be a really nice benefit too, because then you're going to give McCarthy 2 years of having basically 3 deep. I don't know. That sounds pretty good. Now, is it the best use of resources? You could easily argue it's not. But if you wanted to make that big swing, I think the only player that you can make it with is Olave, because of where the situation is, what's going on, and the Saints are basically pre-tank. They're almost there right now. So I'd put this at still like a 2% chance, but this is the only guy I could realistically pencil in as a big name that could potentially get traded. No other receiver made sense in that realm, especially with McLaurin signing that deal. Higgins signed a deal. Garrett Wilson has signed a deal. Jameson Williams, they ain't trading him. They love him in Detroit. This was the only option. So if there is a big swing, I think it will be Olave, but still 2% chance. But I felt it was fair to at least mention it. I do have a story up at A to Z Sports where I kind of talk about the idea of making a big trade. And I referenced it just with Olave because I think it being Olave helps you understand how you can make it work with all three receivers. But you can use that general construct. Hey, we want to acquire a cornerback that costs $15 million a year. You can do that. You just use the same principles. So I thought the article was kind of important. Few other receivers, and then we'll kind of wrap it up here. Trey Palmer, I've seen some conversation in the chat about it. I think Trey played at Nebraska. He's a speedster, like 6 foot, 180 some pounds. I may be off a little bit on those measurements, but he's a little bit of a smaller guy. Just absolute dynamo weapon with speed. Part of the problem is that he might be available. Well, it's a loaded wide receiver room in Tampa Bay. You got Jalen McMillan, who's going to be on injured reserve to start the year. He established himself as their slot guy. They just extended Chris Godwin. They got Mike Evans on a 2-year extension. They just drafted Emeka Egbuka. There's no room for Trey Palmer. And that's not anything due to him. It just is what it is. Stuff happens. And he just kind of pushed out due to no fault of his own. So Palmer could be available for like a 6th or a 7th, maybe a 6-7 swap. But the Vikings no longer have a 6th round pick in the 2026 NFL draft. And that could end up being a problem because teams want current picks. Well, they have 2 6th round picks available to them in 2027. And I believe they also have 2 7ths now as well. No, they only have 1 7th because they traded 1 to Phillips and they got 1 back for Howell. A lot of draft picks moving around this week from the Minnesota Vikings. So Palmer's an interesting option. He's kind of just he's not really a one-trick pony, but he doesn't do everything. He's not an all-rounder like you have with Jefferson and Addison. So you'd need to kind of maneuver things, but I think he's a better version of what Ty Felton is right now. And you can work with that. A couple other guys. Kendrick Bourne from the New England Patriots. He's like wide receiver 8. It's a weird wide receiver room in New England, Dave. It's Stephon Diggs and a bunch of guys like, I don't know how to rank these dudes. They all have interesting elements to them. And Bourne, over the next 2 years, his contract is very simple. $5.5 million in base salary in each year, $850,000 in per game roster bonuses in each year. No guaranteed money. So if Bourne starts to stink, bye. You can cut him, no penalty. So the Patriots might want to get that contract off their books because it would be beneficial to them if they're not going to really give Bourne any kind of reps, if he's just going to be a depth guy. You don't want to pay a depth guy that kind of money. So that's a possibility in a really crowded wide receiver room in New England. The last one I have, it's been mentioned to me a few times, is Dwayne Eskridge from the Miami Dolphins. He's more of like your depth kind of option. Never really caught on with Seattle after being a 2nd round pick. And the big thing with Eskridge, I loved him coming out. I thought he had a lot of potential. I had him ranked just behind Jamar Chase even, and people still love to let me know about that, which understandable. But it did have Chase above him. And I think that needs to be remembered too. But I learned a lot from that draft. And it's helped me become a better analyst and kind of like an NFL draft scout. But Eskridge, he's like 5'11", 205. And I think he could fit in really well as like a wide receiver 3 and then eventually a wide receiver 4. Like, he's a depth guy. And he's on a vet minimum deal, $1.27 million. So it's just a 1-year deal. Probably acquire him super cheap, a 6-7 swap, something like that, or just a flat 7. 2nd round pick in 2021. Like, there's still juice left. But yeah, those are the only receivers that I kind of looked at. I'm like, hey, these make sense. And I wanted to approach it from that perspective because I didn't want to approach it from, hey, these are the guys I want. No, these are the guys I think could make sense. The only one was Olave. And then obviously we've talked plenty about Adam Thielen already. I'll give you his contract numbers again. $6.25 million for his base salary, $750,000 per game roster bonuses with a $7 million cap hit. Can the Vikings end up making this happen? We'll see. Reports are kind of mixed. Carolina has no motivation to give him up other than Thielen. Like, I want to go to Minnesota. I want to go home because they need a veteran presence in that room. It could be Hunter Renfrow, but I don't see it.
Supposedly they have other offers too.
Yeah, that's also a challenge because other teams would want Adam Thielen, and the Vikings will only give up so much. Like, I know we talked about Collar mentioning like a third, fourth swap. I would hate that. I would think that sucked because the opportunity cost between a third and a fourth round pick is so significant in comparison to a fifth to a sixth. Like, the opportunity cost from the Vikings dropping 30 picks to make the Sam Howell thing try and work, no big deal. But you drop from a third round pick to a fourth round pick, that could be going from a guy you believe you could be a starter to a guy you hope might be a starter someday. Like, those viewpoints are just so different. And I would want to stay away. Some chat about Gabe Davis. I don't think Gabe Davis is that good. I also don't think he works in this offense because this offense is predicated so much on in-breakers and being quick out of breaks and stuff. He just doesn't fit that mold.
I thought I heard yesterday he signed or did whatever.
He hasn't officially signed yet, but he's had conversations with the Steelers a couple times. I think he's had conversations with the Jets. Gabe Davis is fine, and he's got good, if you want to look at just good stats, like he had the 4-touchdown game against the Chiefs back a few years ago, but he's just not a great player. And there's a reason why the Jaguars cut him 1 year into a 3-year deal. So I'm out on Gabe Davis. I don't think it works for the Minnesota Vikings, but I think it can work for somebody, just not us. Like, any other receivers that kind of come to mind for you, Dave, that you think are like logical options? I see somebody mentioning Alec Pierce in the chat. I mean, maybe, but he kind of suffers from some of the same Gabe Davis stuff where I don't know if he's that good of a fit here.
I've let the people know who I want. I don't know of anybody else. Tyreek Hill would be expensive.
It would be an all-in move, man. It would be all in. That would be a humongous signal to the entire world. Like, come get us. We're ready. We're ready.
Steven, has SKOL or Score North announced Mr. Mankato? That would be my guess. It was a runaway. It's Max Brosmer.
Oh, they did announce it was Brosmer?
I don't know. Steven says he is.
It would either be Brosmer or Elijah Williams.
It's going to be Brosmer.
Those would be the two. Yeah. It's a quarterback. It's
going to be Brosmer.
Nobody else. Like, Elijah Williams is too, though. That dude had a nuts camp. Awesome. But yeah, Brosmer was really good every single time I saw him. And he took advantage of every single rep given to him. And when you're a quarterback 4, you have to take advantage of every single rep. That
Grateful
matters.
Dad, it's good to see you again. It's been a while. Jakobi Meyers is asking for a trade out of the Raiders.
Well, we talked about him a little bit earlier. So rewind about 20 minutes or so. Yeah. I think the Raiders have to eat a decent portion of that contract for me to really like it. But at that point, how much are you paying in capital? So I think that's one I would prefer to kind of stay away. I think Myers is a really good player. I think he actually might end up going back to New England because New England has so many of those question marks where you get Myers. Okay. That sounds great. But yeah, not a ton of like, oh, these options make a ton of sense. And you know what? Maybe there's one that surprises us. Like maybe one of the many players on the Houston Texans, because they have a really weird wide receiver room too, where it's kind of deep. Maybe like a Xavier Hutchinson, because they traded John Mechie to the Eagles already. Maybe Xavier Hutchinson ends up coming over. It's not sexy, but it could work. I don't think the Chargers are going to want to try and move on from Quentin Johnston yet. But that could be an interesting one as like a reclamation project, because I do think he has the movement skills to be able to utilize this offense. Yeah, Jalen Reagor, absolutely not. Elijah Williams starting on PUP. He can't start on PUP because he's active. So he would go on injured reserve for 4 games. It's possible, but we haven't heard anything about the injury. We had a post-game presser, but no news on Tyler Batty's knee, which they needed to give an MRI, which whenever you hear MRI for an NFL football player, that usually means bad. Usually means it's bad. Somebody asked about Juwan Jennings. Steven did. No, I don't think that's going to happen. They're trading for wide receivers because they don't have depth, because guys are hurt. I don't think they're going to give up any, but that's just me. So
now keep in mind, when trading on the market, the trades that are done as the market closes, a lot of people target that little area in that last hour because that's when the most liquidity is available. And Kwesi, being a trader by background, may be waiting to that last minute to
swoop in.
Yeah.
I think
firm
it's very
up
possible.
Something.
I think it's very possible. We'll find
out by 3:00 tomorrow.
Yes. And there are going to be some interesting stuff. And don't forget, we are going to be with you tomorrow afternoon to talk about the roster, and get excited. There's going to be a lot of fun. And I'm really excited to continue this. We've got a new show announcement that we'll have for you soon. We're still finalizing like the little nuts and bolts, and that's going to be weekly, and it won't just be me. I'll tell you that much. It'll be a lot of fun. Oh yeah. And then we'll have all kinds of breaking news stuff. As long as Dave is able to whip up a graphic, we will be able to bring it all to you. So get excited, get ready. We're going to have a lot of fun this year. Don't forget, join the Vikings First and SKOL Discord channel in the show notes on both YouTube and the podcast feed. Give us a 5-star review. Say nice things about us. Drop a comment. Tell me what your favorite state fair food is and why it's the turkey sandwich or turkey to go, because that thing is just awesome. And if you want more information on that, go listen to my episode that I did with Riva Sana, Norse Code, last week, where I didn't realize I was doing a bit because I was just being honest. That's my favorite food at the fair, but I was doing an incredible bit of his hatred of turkey. Mm-hmm. Just absolute perfect.
He's not having a good week.
Oh,
first
I'm having a good week,
and then we signed Carson Wentz.
Oh, the Carson Wentz thing is just incredible stuff. That man does not like
any NDSU player, but especially Carson Wentz.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I understand it. I lived in Grand Forks for 14 years.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that is our show, guys. Thank you guys very, very much for joining us. I'm Tyler. He's Dave. SKOL Vikings.
SKOL Vikings. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell to get notifications. It helps us grow this community that we all love, our Minnesota Vikings. And on behalf of Tyler Forness and myself, Dave Stefano, thank you so dearly for watching the Real Forno Show. SKOL, everyone!